This is Birds 365 here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. John McMullen and Jody McDonald with you. And each and every single day, we ask someone who's probably brighter than both of us to join us and just raise the show's IQ a little bit. We've achieved our goal already today because hopping on with us from the Allentown Morning Call is Nick Fierro, and he's not on his way to the first tee. That's a good thing. How are you, Nick?
I'm doing great. Yeah, not driving up in one band signal, low signal Central Pennsylvania, so I won't be fading in and out on this one. That might be actually a bad thing, but I don't know about raising the IQ either.
The bad thing was probably that first segment. I don't know if you heard, Jody and I were discussing what quarterbacks would you take in the NFC under their current contract, long term, not for 2021, not just for 2021, but moving forward. And Jalen Hurts might be a little bit higher on that list than most people think. You heard some of those names, Matt Ryan. We were talking about Matthew Stafford. Are we thinking too much of Jalen Hurts to be in the name, even with aging quarterbacks that cost a lot of money like Matt Ryan, Matthew Stafford, etc.? I'm not even going Tom Brady. I can't go there. 150, I can't go there.
Yeah, no, I know. I personally like Hurts. It's funny with Hurts. You guys probably already talked about this. That most quarterbacks come into the league. You have a pretty good beat on whether they can play or not. It's just that you don't know if they have the intangibles. With Hurts, it's the other way around. He's got all the intangibles. He's just not sure about whether he can play yet. And so I guess a lot of people are rooting for him, including me. I think he can play. I do think he's going to be able to play, but it remains to be seen. He's coming into a system here that's going to be new with a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator. These guys are, 40 years old. And what's Shane Steichen, 38? 39. I mean, it's they don't have a lot of experience, but they got a lot of energy. The players seem to be buying in, and where he rates in the NFC or in the NFL, I don't know. I mean, this year, if the Eagles are trying to win a title this year, there's probably a lot of quarterbacks out there that they would rather have, but to build around, I like the idea that they're going with Jalen Hurts, but yeah, I mean, if they thought they could win it this year, maybe they should make a run at Aaron Rodgers or, anybody, Russell Wilson, whatever. I mean, Russell Wilson is 34 years old. Aaron Rodgers is 64 years old, whatever. But some of these things might not make sense, but I do like Jalen Hurts, and I hope they give him a good enough opportunity here to prove himself one way or another. I don't even know that one full season would be that.
Well,
good or bad.
That might be all he gets. Let me give you two specific guys that John and I just went through. Not the older guys who've already accomplished, and money is a factor. Well, one of these two guys, money is actually a factor because he's running out of his rookie deal. Comp these two guys you would rather have going forward for the next several years. Sam Darnold or Jalen Hurts and or Kellen Mond, the rookie for the Minnesota Vikings, and or Jalen Hurts. Which of give me those two Hurts matchups. Who would you take, Darnold over Hurts or Mond over Hurts?
I wouldn't take either one. I'll take Hurts over both of those.
Smart man. That's why I said we raise the IQ level of this show by bringing Nick Fierro on.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sam Darnold was once a top 5 pick, so I'll throw the context out there. He's getting away from Adam Gase. Look, that's a positive. Anybody can get away from Adam Gase. So I think when we talk about Nick, I think you hit the nail on the head, and it's very unique in the NFL. We're always arguing about young quarterbacks. Like, we know Trevor Lawrence has the talent to succeed. What we don't know is does he have the other stuff? And Jalen Hurts, as you pointed out, it's almost the exact opposite. We know the work ethic is there. We know the intangibles are there. We know he handles everything. We know he's a natural leader. Everybody gravitates towards him. But we don't know if he has that top 5 sort of skill level that Sam Darnold has. This whole league evaluated him. It wasn't like he was going to fall to 50. If the Jets didn't take him, everybody had him as a top 10 pick. So that's my concern. With Kellen Mond, I think they're the same player. I think a lot of people thought Mond might even go late first round. He ended up going third round. A lot of people thought Jalen Hurts would be a third round pick, ended up going in the second round. I think they're almost exactly the same type of prospect, except one's got a higher skill level from a physical, from a measurables, from a trait standpoint. So that's what makes it a little bit more difficult for me to add the context to it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and we saw it. We saw it happen with the Eagles. We saw it happen with their quarterback last year. I don't know what direction Carson Wentz is going to go, but he's probably in the best spot he can be in. But man, he didn't handle things well last year. Yeah. I don't expect Jalen Hurts to ever be in that situation. So where he's demanding a trade, looking to get out, being petulant, changing plays, and I don't see that part of it. But that's why I think a lot of people root for it, and I think that's why the players kind of gravitate toward him.
Right, and here's one of the things that John and I disagree on. That just because of where you were drafted, it holds that much gravitas. It really doesn't, because John and I both picked Jalen Hurts over Jared Goff, who was picked number 1. And if the Rams hadn't taken him, it wasn't like he was falling down to number 50. No, he was going to go somewhere in the first.
Going to go number 2.
4, 5 pick. Right, number 2 to the Philadelphia Eagles. And guess what? We both took Jalen Hurts today. So where you were selected in the draft has relevance on the day you're selected, and then it is determined by how you play thereafter. And yes, John's got a good point in that. I don't know that Sam Darnold had the best coaching or was on the best team with the Jets, but that's what you got to base it on, what he's done so far in the league. Here's what I know as a Jet fan. Sam Darnold didn't do diddly since he got into a Jet uniform. If you want to say it was everybody else's fault for Sam Darnold, you may be proven right. We'll see what he does in Carolina. But I'll tell you this, he didn't do anything. He didn't merit being the second, third pick in a draft. He played like a guy who should have been drafted in the 8th round in the NFL draft, which, of course, they don't have. So we'll see how Sam Darnold does in Carolina this year.
Yeah, I think, too, with the NFL, and not just with Darnold, but with everybody, the league has just become such an impatient league when it comes to quarterbacks. Guys can't develop. I once had a long conversation with Kurt Warner about this. He never, like today, he would never get a shot. He would have been typecast, and that would have been it. I guess it even back then it took like an act of God for him to get a chance with 2 injuries ahead of him. But he wasn't ready to go. Had he been thrust into that same role 2 years earlier, he probably would have failed. And then he would have been typecast as this guy who, was just a backup the whole rest of his career. Lots of times it comes down to, are you in the right place at the right time? And do you have the right coaching? And a lot of these guys might not be ready to go their first, second, or even third years, but later in their careers, they find something. And, maybe Darnold is one of those guys. And I think there are probably a lot of guys like that, in the league. But once you get typecast and once you get, sat down, and teams don't want to, they have a new coach, they don't stay patient with a coach very, very much. So the coach is going to go for a more experienced guy. And, he's not going to hang his hat on somebody who's unproven for very long. And that's unfortunately what you have in the NFL. So, who knows? Sam Darnold might turn out to be a great quarterback. I'm not going to, better than Jalen Hurts, better than him. But then again, I like Jalen Hurts too. I mean, I thought that, the things happened at Alabama, but look what he did after that. And had he had another year in college, whatever, I just wonder how much higher he would have been drafted anyway, or what his stock would have been.
Yeah. So Nick, going back to one of your first points and kind of marrying it up to what you just said there, he's going to get 1 year. And can he prove enough one way or the other if he's the actual answer? If the Eagles are not going to be patient about this, and there's some good and there's some bad, but they think the grass is greener. They have a top 10 pick, or Deshaun Watson becomes available, or something of that nature. Is even 1 year enough to barely evaluate a young quarterback in the NFL?
No, absolutely not. We just saw it with all these other guys. I mean, how many guys like Goff and Wentz and all these guys who've been drafted really high are with other teams right now? When teams made commitments to them with second contracts, and then it didn't pan out for one reason or another. And so no, I don't know. Like, if Jalen Hurts has this tremendous year, throws for 4,000, 5,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, whatever, few interceptions, is that going to be, enough for me to say that he's their guy for the next 10 years? Probably not. Or if he kind of falls flat in his face, I don't know about that part of it either. I think it just depends on circumstances. And, you have to trust your football people to figure that out. And will that happen? That part I don't know. I don't know if he'll get that kind of chance, but that's the whole league. So, I don't know. I will say this: Deshaun Watson, he's one guy I would take over Hurts right now.
Oh, yeah. He's the FU player. That's what I call him, Nick. FU players. If somebody becomes available who's so good, even if you like a kid, and the Eagles like Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
But if Deshaun Watson is clear and they can get him clear of allegations, he's an FU player. It all changes at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think the Eagles would be willing to, accept any kind of discipline the league kind of lays down, as long as they can get the that other part of it where he might not be. They don't want him going away to prison for. But I mean, if that part gets settled, which it might, they'll accept anything that the league hands down, whether it's a half-year suspension or whatever, or longer. That might even fit into their plan even more, because that'll even improve their draft stock next year. So, but if they can get that, they'll take that and they'll go forward with Deshaun Watson. But yeah, I would take him. He's young, but I would not bring a guy like Aaron Rodgers in, or Russell Wilson. I mean, what are you building with those guys? Now, I don't see. But I would with Deshaun Watson. And the negative PR, they'll get over that. I mean, they've gotten over that before.
They've done it before, yeah.
And I take Aaron Rodgers and or Russell Wilson. The shelf life of the top flight NFL quarterbacks just continues to get extended by Mr. Brady, that you can bank on these guys playing longer in their careers. So I'd like to have either one of those two guys around for a while. Sorry about that.
Well, the thing about Rodgers is he's had some injuries, though. It's not been like Brady's had like that one injury, like I think back around 12 years ago or so, and that was about it. But Rodgers has been in and out. That's why I wouldn't want Rodgers.
He kind of stayed healthy enough to get the MVP last year, but that's only one award that he won. And your point about is 1 year going to be enough to judge Jalen Hurts is very fair and accurate. Here's where I don't have issue with it. I believe, I don't know this. Maybe we get somebody to tell us on the stream if this is the case. I believe the Eagles will give their position to Jalen Hurts well before the season ever starts, that he will full well know what he needs to accomplish if he's going to be the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles going forward. I don't know if they're going to break it down for him in number of touchdown passes and quarterback ranking, but they'll get the message apart. He's a really smart kid, so he's going to be able to understand it when they tell him, here's what we're going to need you to do. If you do, you'll be our quarterback. If you don't, Jalen, we're not going to promise anything, and there's a good chance we're going to go in another direction. As long as they're up front with him and they tell him what is expected of him and what's at stake and what their thinking is as of right now, life isn't fair. It's probably not fair that they're going to hold him to this 1 year test it mode. But as long as they tell him what they're doing, I think he's got to be able to step up to the challenge and deal with it and just go out and win yourself a job going forward.
Yeah, that's fair. Absolutely. And he can handle that, I think. So I'm really anxious to see how he processes everything, goes through the season, and hopefully stays healthy all the way through and doesn't get interrupted with a bunch of injuries, which seems to always happen with Eagles quarterbacks. I mean, that's really going to be the thing too. If he plays 16 games this year, we might get a pretty good idea of what he is. If he only plays 10, is that a good enough sample size?
Yeah.
Now we're back into the projection business. All right.
And that's, by the way, that is the business everybody's in, Jody. I mean, it's not about, I always say it, it's not about the rearview mirror. It's about looking out in front of you. It's about what's going to happen. That's why it makes it so difficult. And it's very difficult to evaluate NFL players. Now, the guys doing that, Nick, we got to talk a bit to the assistant coaches last week. Your first impressions of this staff, because it is very young, it's very inexperienced. The guys who do have experience, Stout being one of them, Tracy Rocker is a little bit older, but he spent most of his career at the college level. Jamal Singleton has been around the NFL, but mainly as a running backs coach. Do you think Nick Sirianni just turned 40? Happy birthday again, coach. Just turned 40 yesterday. Do you think he's got enough as a sounding board? We look around this league. Sean McVay had Wade Phillips, on and on. Doug Peterson had Jim Schwartz. Matt Nagy had Vic Fangio. Why the Eagles didn't bring in a veteran coach as a sounding board for Nick Sirianni?
Yeah, good question. And they let him pretty much pick his staff, didn't they? From what I understand.
Pretty
They
much.
didn't really let Doug Peterson pick his staff as much.
Amazing. One of the most amazing things. I can't figure it out.
So, yeah, he's got all these young guys. But I imagine he'll lean heavily on Stout. And, I'm not sure about Tracy Rocker. Tracy Rocker's 50-some years old. But, like you said, he's only spent, I think 3 years in the NFL before coming here. And that was a few years ago. And so, I don't know. A good question. I really like Jonathan Gannon. I think he's got a pretty good feel. One thing I noticed about these coaches, they're all still like athletes. How they run on the field.
Yeah.
They get out there. They might as well be like baseball guys and wear the uniforms and just be out there playing pepper or whatever. But I like that part of it. But yeah, I don't know. And think things start to go sideways. Will they be able to handle that? That's really the thing. I would think you'd need a little bit more experience in there.
All right, Nick. I want to jump back into quarterback mode with you. Eagles with a big signing this week. Nick Mullins now in Eagles QB, and I did double check in my betting outlets. The Eagles were 6.5 under over for this year. The needle hasn't moved. It hasn't gone to 7 or 8 with the signing of Nick Mullins. Yeah, I know he's the third string quarterback, and if you get there, it doesn't much matter. But I still don't understand this. How this team, as of right now, doesn't have a developmental quarterback. And my partner keeps trying to tell me, no, the starting quarterback is the developmental quarterback. No, if you're the starting quarterback, you're not developmental. You're the starter. If you're the starter, you're not developmental. If you're developmental, you're not the starter. Those two things go hand in hand, at least in this man's mind. How do they not have a developmental quarterback on this team right now? And was Nick Mullins a great signing just in case, because he's actually played a bunch of games pretty poorly in the NFL so far?
Yeah, I'm not so sure that they really need a third string quarterback to be a developmental guy. I think I kind of agree with John. Your developmental guy is Hurts, but the bottom line is I don't really felt that they thought Newman was going to be the guy, and I felt like they upgraded with Mullins over Newman. That's the bottom line on that, as far as I'm concerned. I think that was an upgrade there, and maybe the number 3 quarterback, especially the way the things have gone, is going to be a factor this year, because he's going to be. There's going to be times when maybe the number 1's out. Like I said, we're talking about injuries with Hurts, and so I don't know. I don't think you necessarily have to have that. And this is all temporary anyway, and that things could change. There's going to be quarterbacks floating around there that they might pick off that get let go, or that might be out there. So I'm not really concerned about that part of it right now.
Yeah, and the third, and Nick is coming off elbow surgery as well. Not Nick Fierro, Nick Mullins.
Yeah.
So we got to see if he's healthy come August when he's out there. So number one, with Nick Mullins, I agree with Nick. I don't think third quarterback is that important, but there are a lot of important positions on this particular team, Nick. And we talk about competition. We always got to go back to the one position that, as we stand here today, looks like a glaring weakness, and that's cornerback after Darius Slay. They still haven't done anything. They still haven't brought in a veteran. Veterans elsewhere. A lot of people talked about Bashawn Breeland, and he's out. Steven Nelson's still out there. Can they go into a season counting on Zach McPherson, a fourth-round pick, or Mike Jaquette developing, or is that going to be an absolute disaster?
Yeah, I think they're going to be making some moves, right? I would expect them to be doing some things there, both at that position and safety, maybe even linebacker. But yeah, I don't think they're really kind of ready. But then again, maybe Zach McPherson is the guy. But Avonte Maddox didn't really work out last year as an outside corner, and so they're going to probably move him back in there this year. Maybe he's even an option at safety because they're going to need an extra safety because I don't think Rodney McLeod's going to play. So this all kind of plays into it too. I don't think he's going to be ready to play to start the season. Yeah. And so they're going to be short there. I think really short at safety. And, it depends on what they play, right? I think we kind of all expect JG to kind of play a cover 2, cover 3 a lot as kind of like and so do they really need big time cover corners? Probably not. As long as these guys can understand the zone, but you need great safeties for that. And I don't know if you have that, beyond their starters, and one of the starters is probably going to be out. And so I don't know. It's how that whole back end works, but I imagine I would pretty much guarantee you that they're going to be making moves at corner and at safety to bring in veterans or, guys either via trade or waiver pickups. That what we have on this roster now is, the 53-man roster is going to have a couple of guys on it that are not on it right on the 90-man roster right now.
Understood. And a lot of times we talk on the show about the influence of the owner. And we know that Jeff Lurie loves offense. We know that he loves throwing the football, that he would call weekly meetings with Doug Peterson to say, why don't we throw the football more than we're throwing the football, even after winning games? I wonder what Jeffrey's opinion is about another team throwing for 400 yards against the Eagles on a given Sunday. Does he get the head coach in there and then question what kind of defense he's playing and his inability to stop the pass? Or does he actually question the guy who's putting the roster together, his buddy, his pal, his right-hand man, Howie Roseman, because Howie's the guy who hasn't given that new defensive coordinator much help in the defensive backfield this offseason. How are those meetings going to work in Jeff Lurie's office, do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be holding Howie Roseman accountable too much. I mean, that's pretty much been the track record on that. It's like he can do no wrong. So I don't know. I think it's going to be more along the lines of how come, if this opponent threw for 400 yards against us, how come we didn't throw for 500?
That's a good point. And to Jody's original question, Nick, does Jeff put 2 and 2 together? He's like, I want to throw the football, but he doesn't seem to be concerned that the other team can throw the football against him. It's only one way. It works both ways. And I want to take you down this road because I ask a lot of people this, Nick. And you've been around with me, and we see it every year. When the season ends, Howie Roseman comes up there and says, we got to get younger. We got to get more cost effective. We got to turn this thing over. And then the season goes on. The offseason goes on. And slowly the Eagles start thinking, you know what? Maybe we got a chance. We're in a bad division. The NFC East stinks. We're a little bit better than outside people think we are. And all of a sudden the Ryan Kerrigans start coming in. You mentioned cover 2, cover 3. Guess who's out there? Richard Sherman, the cover 3 cornerback. Did the Eagles go down that rabbit hole again and keep bringing in veteran players? They just want Nick Mullins instead of a Jamie Newman, who's a young, cost-effective guy. They brought in the veteran. Are they going to keep going down this road? Are they going to fall in the rabbit hole again and say, we're a little bit closer than people think?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I don't know. I wrote, again, but maybe it comes down to cost too. You mentioned Richard Sherman. How much will it cost to get him in here? I wouldn't necessarily mind him in here if it doesn't, put them back or mess up their cap. And at this stage, what would he get? And that same way with Steven Nelson too. I mean, he's younger, but still he's veteran. I think he's 28, 29. And is it worth it to go out and get a guy like that when, you're probably not going to be contending for a year or two? And so then, you have to worry about re-signing him. Lots of these guys are in on a 1-year deal. But just keeping along those lines, have you looked at the Eagles roster online lately that they put out there? They list all the guys. They list 3 unrestricted free agents, and one of them is Jason Peters, who's still on their website as an unrestricted free agent. Just putting that out there.
Coming back, the flow chart, Nick. The flow chart at the Nova.
There we go. Yeah. Jason Peters. They list Cravon LeBlanc and Nickel Roby-Coleman. Right. Those are 3 unrestricted free agents that they still list on their roster as of right now.
Okay, that hopefully.
I'm just saying that. But yeah, but again, I don't know that it would be necessarily bad to get a guy like Richard Sherman. They got to get somebody better in there. They got to get some competent people in a cornerback and at safety. Because again, I don't know what they have. You can't rely really on anybody. I'm actually working today. I just posted the story right before we came online with you guys about my 53-man roster projection, my first one of the year. And boy, I really had a tough time with the safeties. You don't
like Marcus Epps? Come on.
Yeah. Well, I like. I put him on the team because of special teams. But like, what else do they have? Like, that Kayvon Wallace, we don't know about him yet. They got Anthony Harris, but I have Craig James on there because of specialty. I don't know what else do they have? And if one of these guys goes down, that's really going to be a problem.
Yeah. If Anthony Harris goes down, it would be ugly at the safety position.
I mean, they used to be able to handle one injury at each position group. That's how they won the Super Bowl. They had a bunch of injuries that year too, but it was spread out over different position groups. But in recent years, they've been getting hit hard with 4 and 5 guys going down. But now they're back to this point where, if one guy goes down, like if Slay goes down, or, what are they going to do? If Harris goes down, what are they going to do? I don't know. It's
fair point. The depth is really bad on the defensive side of the football.
Nick, I think I inadvertently got an internal email that I wasn't supposed to get from the Eagles that said they're not allowed to remove Jason Peters' name from the roster until Mr. Laurie specifically said so. Yeah. So apparently he has not sent that memo out. I did get the one about don't you dare take him off the roster, but he is still on there. I'm going to bring up something, Nick, that we've been doing Birds 365 for 10 and a half weeks. And it dawned on me last night when I was putting some ideas together for the show that this has not transpired. Would you believe in 10 and a half weeks, neither me or my partner, John McMullen, have issued any kind of thought process or statement or even mentioned the name of Jake Elliott, the leading scorer of the Philadelphia Eagles, as their kicker, has not been broached once this entire 10 and a half week off season that we've been doing here on Birds 365. He had an okay at best, I would even say kind of disappointing year last year. And we're just talking about depth on the roster and competition. Isn't that the mantra of the head coach, competition? There is no competition for the Eagles kicker spot as of right now. Are the Eagles okay with Jake Elliott as their kicker?
It seems like they are, and I'm glad you brought that up because I really feel like, it's not just Jake, but all the guys that came before him. were actually hurt by not having competition in camp. Even though they realized that, the team could go out at any time and sign somebody, that they're really competing against guys who are not on the roster. It doesn't matter. Having somebody right there kicking alongside you, that means a lot. And, I think that it's really kind of hurt him over the years. And it just like it hurt kickers before him to not ever have more than one kicker in camp. You got 90 roster spots. Do you really have to have every one of them? You can have 2 kickers on there. You can afford to go with one less linebacker or something like that. And I really believe in that. You don't necessarily have to have another long snapper because I think Lovato's kind of proved himself. But it goes that way with punter too. Now that you have a new guy,
punter's worse. Aaron Cepos has never done it. At least Jake Elliott's an NFL kicker. And
right.
Jake, for people who don't know, Nick and Jake is great. Nick said it. Jake's great at everything. He's a great softball player. Mm-hmm. He could even beat Nick Fierro on the golf course. He is a phenomenal golfer. Ping pong, he destroys everybody. Jake Elliott does everything well, as Nick Ciriani said, except the occasional 33-yard field.
Yeah. Which is kind of the most important thing. Thank you very much, Mr. McMullen. I give this much care about what Jake Elliott can do other than kick the ball through the goalposts.
Here's another thing, too, that I brought up in my story, and I've been trying to get this question in on the coaches, but it's tough because you only get one chance in these Zoom calls.
Yeah.
Why don't the Eagles consider hiring a kicking coach? A lot of teams are starting to go to this. Your kicker is almost always your number one scorer. You would never go through a season without a quarterback's coach. Your quarterback's your number one position. To me, kicker is almost as important. And, it's not enough to just have a special teams coordinator who times the stuff with the stopwatch and does all that stuff and breaks all that metric stuff down. But when you get a kicking coach in there that can really help you with mechanics and things like that, that could really be helpful. And I think the Eagles could, and a lot of teams could really benefit from having a kicking coach. And I think they should consider
They hired a kicking coach. They hired Randy Brown's kid.
Yeah.
The mayor of Marlton, the Ravens kicking coach.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They hired his kid. I forget his name. So it's Randy Brown's son. He's assistant special teams coach, but he's mainly a kicking expert, or supposedly. So they've gone a little bit down there, bro.
Well, that's good. That should help. I mean, Friday, he knows what he's doing. But I think every team should do that.
Yeah, Nate Kading, I know the former kicker for the Chargers, has been a kicking coach. You would think it would be somebody who was in the NFL, though. I mean, Randy's son is very young. There's not a lot of experience there, but they have at least started to go down that route. Because I agree with you. I mean, you got 150 coaches. Why not have a kicking expert coach?
Yeah, that would be Tyler Brown. Shame on me. I should have known his name too, since he is a former Cherokee standout. My daughter's high school right here in town. Randy's son is assistant specialty teams coach, but I got to believe he is the kicking instructor. So John is exactly right about that. But he's got to be close personal friends with Jake Elliott now, since they just pal out together. Will Tyler Brown be able to coach, since Jake Elliott is going to beat him like a drum in every single thing in life, except for maybe kicking, according to Nick Siriani?
Yeah. Well, yes, Nick's right. Jake's great at everything. I mean, everything. It is unbelievable.
Hand-eye coordination stuff is tremendous. I think he's a 3 handicap or 2 handicap on the golf course.
He could beat Nick Fierro? That's tough to believe. All right, Nick, just 1 or 2 more quickies before we let you go. Hold on. Let me say. Oh, Zach Ertz is still here. Zach Ertz is supposed to have been gone like 2 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, 12 weeks ago. And yet he continues to be property of the Philadelphia Eagles. The tight end coach did specifically mention in your Zoom conference with him that, he's still talking to Zach, and they're getting along pretty well. Howie Roseman is apparently holding out for getting something in return. He might be swimming upstream here, and at some point got to realize my evaluation of him isn't the league's evaluation. Is the fullback position he's actually going to stay? will the Eagles attempt to throw their arms around him and apologize? Maybe ask Jake Elliott to tank against him in a game of golf. I don't know what they can do to make up with Zach Ertz, but is there any chance of that happening?
I don't see it. I mean, do you guys? I really don't. I mean, I feel like he's going to be going one way or another, whether they have to release him or take a conditional draft pick. But I think that the differences can't be mended there. I just, how do you guys see it? I would really be surprised if he's on this team.
No, I agree. I don't think he's going to be here, Nick. I don't think they want to do it to a rookie head coach. Zach's not going to be happy if he's here. Now, he's going to be a professional, but why do you want to bring that into your locker room for a rookie head coach that's kind of feeling his way? I don't think it makes sense from either side's perspective. And they brought back Richard Rodgers. So at least they have that safety net of having a tight end behind Dallas Goedert, which is, that was another position. Before Richard was back, we were talking about undrafted free agents like Jack Stoll or Tyreek Jackson as a developmental prospect. You were just doing your 53-man roster. Who'd you have on tight ends?
Yeah, well, I was considering just having just the two. I didn't put Ertz on there, but then at the last minute I decided to add Kroom, but as the third guy. But I don't know that that's a lock. I mean, anything can happen there. They might only keep two if all they have is two. They've done that in the past under Andy Reid. They only ever carried two tight ends.
Doug only carried two. Killed me in the roster pool the 1 year because he only kept two tight ends.
So they could very well do that, but it just depends on how they want to run their offense, and if they want to be more tight end heavy, which the Eagles have been. Let's face it, they've needed all three tight ends, and they especially last year, when they had to turn to Richard Rodgers, who was basically unavailable to them in 2018 and 2019 because of injuries, and then it turned around where the other two guys got hurt, and then they needed him, and he was there for them. And so, I think they need three. They probably do need three, but is the third one going to be Kroom? I don't know. There's going to be guys out there that's another position where you can see some movement maybe. So, and maybe this 6'7" guy. He's just a huge. He is
unbelievable. On the field, I was like, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah, he looks even bigger in person.
Doc Rivers could use him tonight. He could use Tyreek Jackson tonight. He is long. Tyreek Jackson.
All right, so you can go online to the Allentown Morning Call and check out Nick's first foray into the 53-man roster. Is your next article the 12 or 16-man practice squad? Because if you're going to take poke and hope shots, you might as well go all the way through the practice squad.
Yeah, we the beat writers, we have this pool every year. We put in we have the contest, and I lost on the tiebreaker the 1 year to Les Bowen a couple of years ago on the practice squad because I wasn't even aware of the rules, and I had one guy.
They changed the rules so much. Yeah, they changed them so much.
So I'm really I'm not getting into the practice squad, man. And after that just spoiled my whole thing. I don't get in the pool anymore.
You're gonna have to get
Well, Doug screwed me the 1 year by only keeping the two tight ends. I'm like, well, the guy plays 12 personnel. He's got to keep three tight ends. No, he kept two. I told Doug, you screwed me. I was this close to being back-to-back champion, Nick.
Yeah.
2 years in a row, and I lost because Doug kept two tight ends.
I'm just giving you guys advanced advice. Tyree Jackson practice squad. He will be here. He will be here, but it'll be on the practice squad. He will not make the regular roster. Feel free to use this information as you see fit in any competitions you guys may have. All right, we got to run. Nick, glad to have you aboard. Hopefully next time you got a golf date and you got to say no, and then we got to work on it to get you up and on the show again. But thanks for hanging with us today. Continue to enjoy your downtime.
Great. I enjoyed it, guys.
Thanks, Nick.
Nick Fierro of the Allentown Morning Call here with us on Birds 365. All right, ran a little long there. We'll take a timeout, come back. John and I are going to run through the AFC, our comparison take Jalen Hurts or the present-day quarterback of another starter. We went all the way through the NFC. We agreed on more than I actually thought we were going to. We disagreed on a couple. AFC, I'm not going to be quite as Jalen leaning as I was in the NFC. We'll get my partner Mac Man's picks with that coming up next here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.